Hi. Sometimes we have to come out to the car to do a video because the house gets loud and it's been loud out. So I came out to the car to do a video um, because I also did not want to be interrupted. It's a real simple video and it's just going to be me. So, shalom, hello. And it's just about homeschooling. And that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about at this time is homeschooling. So, I think a lot of you already know. Hi, Nikki. How you doing? I think a lot of you guys already know that we homeschool. Hey, best friend. We, you know, I started homeschooling. I start homeschooling when a child seems to be old enough to receive it. So I started homeschooling the first in-house child at about 16 months. Once I realized that they're connecting with what I'm saying and stuff, I'm going to start teaching them colors and shapes and numbers and letters and things like that. We're going to go from there. But I learned about homeschooling before we had the children. And it just seemed, I think homeschooling really got big starting in the 60s and 70s, ironically. But there was no data on the outcome of those children up until, I guess, the early 2000s, when those children started becoming adults. And the basic consensus is that these homeschooled children were phenomenal in their academics and things like that, and they're all great people. I mean, case in point, one famous person that you do know that was homeschooled is John Legend. Okay. And he makes great music and, stays out of trouble and all this kind of stuff. So, we started learning about all these people that were coming out, and the results are showing that homeschooled children do great. So I started to want to homeschool my children. Plus, I know that I'm kind of weird as an individual, and then our husband coming from another country can be seen as weird from here, So I just knew that these children are going to be kind of odd. So, that was one reason I wanted to homeschool. But I started when they like 16 months, and I started just filling them with everything I could possibly fill them with. And with the first one, we tried to send her to school, and we were just disappointed all the time. One reason to not homeschool, one reason to homeschool and to not send them to school is that you have to answer to those people for everything. And that was quite annoying. We couldn't, if we wanted to leave town to observe the feast, and Hebrew feasts are typically 7 days plus one. So 8-day long feast. If we wanted to leave and do the feast and have our children with us, the school had something to say. And one year we did that, and they put her on academic probation, even though she was a straight A student. And that was a problem. It's like, why are you punishing her, for her family's belief system? That's not fair. So, that was a problem. But every summer that she'd be at home, I'd be teaching them at the house. Every winter break, every spring break, she having class at the house. She was also very unhappy with school. With us being Hebrew, there was a lot of differences between her and the children that were there. So it was a problem for her. Her teacher said she would cry often. And when you talk to her, she'd be like, it's because I don't want to be there. She wanted to be at home. And she would beg me, like, you teach me. Like, I know that you can because you teach me all the time. Besides, I'm teaching her little brothers at home. The other thing was the child right under her, he was already reading and doing simple maths at the age of 4. And they would not, I was like, take him now. Okay. But he's fall born. And they were like, no, he has to wait another year. I'm like, you should take him now because he already knows how to do everything that a kindergartner is doing in traditional school. But they refused to take him based on him possibly not being mature enough. And that's not a test that they do. Where we live, that's just the rule. They do not take your children younger than 5 years old. So, but, we started reading some books. And the first book that we read And I must have let somebody borrow that book, and that's what's annoying about a good book, is that if you let somebody borrow it, you're probably not gonna get it back. So the first book that I read, that I shared with our husband, is called The Warrior Method, and it's by Raymond Winbush, and it talks about the disparities of Black male children in the school system. And, it just talks about how, like, white teachers aren't able to relate to, the little Black boys, and so they're always punishing them. And even the female Black teachers are always punishing these little Black boys, and, there's not enough male representation in the school system, as teachers and stuff go. So, and I'm seeing this played out at my daughter's school. Every time I go, some of them little boys was always in timeout, and they didn't seem like very bad kids to me, but they were always in timeout, and I'm just like, wow. And I'm looking at our little boys, and I'm just like, oh no, I know they're gonna be in timeout, like, they all over the place at the house. And so, I would share with him what it said, and he's talking about the Raymond Winbush is talking about building kind of I'm saying a hedge around them so that they can grow up properly. You see what I'm saying? And not have to deal with being seen as bad. If the school system is already saying that Black children are bad, and you've seen the doll test when you got the white doll and the Black doll, and you've seen that little experiment that they do with the Black children and things like that. So the school system is already teaching them that they're bad. And then it's going one step further with Black males. Like, y'all are really bad. We didn't want them to be subjected to that. So at the end of the year, after a second grade year of many disappointments, my husband was like, I don't pull her out, and I don't ever want any of my sons to see the inside of the school system. And so that's when we finally went from, I guess, part-time to full-time. With the boys, it was already full-time because we didn't do daycare. When we did daycare early on, and that woman is a family friend, and she didn't eat pork, just like we don't. And so, like, she could watch the kids. She's an old lady. She watched everybody's kids, and she's still around watching people's kids today. So, other than her, though, the kids were always with me, and, and my color's the same. So there was that book. That's Raymond Winbush's The Warrior Method, which was really awesome. Another book that we read, Sister Jackson is still watching children from a senior facility. It's like, it's a bunch of townhome apartments, and it's for seniors, and she's still over there watching kids, girl. She watch them all summer. So if you know somebody, but she's very selective about who she brings in there, but you can always ask. So the other book is Freedom Challenge, African American Homeschoolers. And what this is it is essays. Essays and little writings from homeschooled children. Some of them talking about why they like to be homeschooled, and pictures too. You can see those pictures and stuff. Why they prefer to be homeschooled, and sometimes from their parents, but often it's from the children on things they've learned and things like that. So, what we did when we pulled her out, and you have to understand, every state is going to be different. Anytime anybody asks me about homeschooling, the first thing I suggest they do, especially if they haven't started, obviously, is that they consult the HSLDA, that is the Homeschool Legal Defense of America. You want to consult these people, and you want to let them know that you'd like to pull your child out of school, and you would like their advice on how to go about it. They really want people to join the association. We never joined it. I never did join. But that particular information right there is real preliminary, and they don't seem to have a problem with giving it out. So, because they gave it to me with no problem. So I called the HSLDA. I told them what state we were in. And this is just on a side note. We're in Texas, and that's one reason I like living in Texas, because Texas is very low government. They don't like big government on stuff. So the homeschooling situation is very lax here, because there are so many militias. When I say militias, I'm talking about the white people. There are so many militias in Texas, and they have fought for, quote unquote, and voted for the right to homeschool how you see fit. So this state is very lenient when it comes to homeschooling. But they told me exactly what to do. I was to write a letter to her school and to the school district and include her student ID number and tell them that she would not be returning to any of the schools the next year because we were going to homeschool her. Also in Texas, homeschools are often looked at as private schools. So I had to think of a name for the school and let them know the name of the school. Now, with Texas, the thing that they want you to do is make sure you're bringing them up to be good citizens. That's really like the only thing that Texas wants you to do. They not ask you to teach them anything. They don't want to see your curriculum. They don't want to see a portfolio, although it's good to keep some kind of I'm saying loosely based portfolio if you're in a state like ours, only because if something happens and your homeschooling comes into concern, like sometimes grandparents call CPS on people. It happens. Ain't never happened to us, but it has happened to people before. That is when the state is going to want to know, what are your children learning and what do you have them doing, or are you just like letting them just like be? So some kind of loose level of portfolio is good, but otherwise, Texas don't really ask you for any of that. They don't ask you to even teach them to read and write. And some of those militias that I was talking about are very Christians. Some of them only teach Bible and hand trade stuff, like, learning how to build a table and stuff like that. So I know it sounds crazy, but they are able to do that here and not be bothered by the state. So I never picked a curriculum. I tried a couple of curriculums, and I'm the type of person that absolutely hates a curriculum. If I wanted a curriculum, I guess I'd put them back in school. That's just me. Curriculums I'm calling it rigid. There's a way to teach what they've put together there, and they put it together there, and they tell you how to teach that. You know what I mean? And then you've got the fact that if you're doing anything with like a online school or anything like that, then the online school will tell, when your child fails, your child didn't do good on that math section right there. And so they've got a failing grade and things like that. I don't like anything like that whatsoever. Every curriculum that I've ever looked at has fallen short somewhere to me. So what we tend to do is we got some workbooks for certain subjects: reading, math, language arts, geography, science. There's phonics books and all that kind of stuff, and it's by Spectrum. I'm using Spectrum to teach them like that, but everything else they get is from Talking. There were times that there are some Caribbean history books that the beginnings, at least, come the same way as many of us Black people got over here through slave ships and everything. It tells that whole story. It's just that since it's from the Caribbean, since it's from the West Indies, it is almost a Black point of view on our history. And it talks a lot about Africa and West Africa and these kingdoms and things like that. And that's just something I never saw in the American history textbooks. Like in our textbooks for us, I never saw that kind of stuff. So I've used that before in the past just to sit there and read it. You just read it to the kids. You just answer all their questions. Life is going to teach them. But you answer all their questions and you show them the things that you think that they need to know, like timelines and things like that. So everything else is just us just pouring into the kids. And that's it. And if you were to speak to our children, which we've been playing with the idea of interviewing the children based on the subjects of this channel, polygyny and stuff like that, and letting y'all hear how they feel. But if you hear them and you talk to them, you already know that like their intellect level, their education level is pretty high. Like they are above average. And so you know, as one of the mommies, I'm happy, I'm proud. You know, they're not perfect. You know, and we're not perfect either. So, but you know, we learn often as they learn. My daughter's math ain't no joke. That stuff, I showed it to the other kids. I was like, yo, this is her math. The other kids were like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yes, there are letters and parentheses and fractions in there and something called a scope. You know. But yeah, you know, so I had to learn scope and slope intercept form and all that kind of stuff again. I had to come over it again and things like that in order to help her understand it. But it's just, it allows us to be free. Homeschooling allows us to go and do what it is that we want to do with the children, taking them along with us. You saw in our videos a few months ago, we up and went to Florida, and we stayed in Florida for some months, you know? So that's what you can do when you homeschool. You just, the school is with you. So you just take your school and pick up and go. And when you get burnt out, because we are typically on for the whole year, if y'all get burnt out, sometimes them kids are burnt out. School, you know, learning is stressful. It's stressful for everybody. So that doesn't change, you know. Sometimes you need a rest. Sometimes the kids need a rest. If family members come, you know, we might stop because the family member is there, you know what I mean? And people want to visit and things like that. So, you know, but that is pretty much it. I know that it seems difficult to homeschool. And I know that society makes it seem really hard to maintain a household on one income. And I'm not saying that it's not, it is. But some of us that say these things are using them as excuses. You could try living at your means or even below your means in order for somebody to stay at home and teach those children. We know single mothers that have homeschooled their kids by having, you know, unusual hours for work or working from home if that's a possibility and things like that. So there's many options. I think anybody that's going to be polygynous, anybody that's going to have a belief system that is outside of the general mainstream belief system, you're going to be on the fringes of society. And I think if you don't want the school system dumping what they want to put into your child that might be completely adverse to you, I suggest doing what you can to homeschool. There are co-ops. If you don't know of a co-op in your area, you might be the one to start a co-op. And a co-op is a cooperative. And a cooperative is a bunch of parents who are like-minded and think the same way. And they've all pulled their children out of school so that they can help each other educate these children. So some of the parents teach at different times. Some of them are committed to making sure the children have breakfast and lunch. And others are committed to make sure those children have experiences like field trips, and we do field trips too, you know, but field trips and things like that. And, you know, that is always an option as well. You know, you just have to put money into that and paying dues and things like that so that everybody can have what they need. So I just wanted to hopefully give some people some inspiration on homeschooling. Let's see. Let me go through the comments. Said, I just wish cyber school from independent homeschool curriculum would grow. Yeah, that would be great. Because I've seen the curriculum that they have for children that is part of the public school system. And I didn't like it. Like I said, I don't like that. If you get it wrong, I don't want you to feel like you just failed. I want you to do it until you get it right. And we have all the time. You know, we don't have all the time in the world, but the beauty of homeschooling is if your child is having a problem, you can go over it until they get it. And when they are grown-ups, nobody's know the difference. Nobody's even going to know when you learn to read. Nobody's going to know how bad you were at math. But the fact that being at home, it allows you to go over with that child until that child does get it. And at the end of the day, they'll be 35 and they got it. They understand. So Homeschooling is increasing amongst Blacks. Polygyny could only improve the logistics of stay-at-home parents versus the working parents. Absolutely, I agree. Plus, you run the risk of drawing attention to your lifestyle if polygynous. Yes, this is true. I'm not big on telling children not to tell the truth about their lives. I think that's real dangerous and messy, really. We shouldn't put it on children to have to lie or anything like that. So it's one of those things I would probably just let the children say whatever it is that they're going to say. Even right now, they'll be calling each other siblings and stuff, but there are clearly two women being called mom there, and that can become confusing for the populace. But we just let it happen. Everybody's on a need to know basis, but if you find out, then hey, that's what you find out. It's the neighbor walking her dog. My sons have been homeschooled for 3 years now. It's difficult, especially since my wife and I work. Another solution is polygyny. She can't see it. Tempted to leave. Only put her in a worse position. It's nobody's business, really. Yeah. Price. We should do a video on wives that don't want polygyny. Don't leave her. But we definitely need to have a video about that because we have some opinions that got to put out there. Make some things clear. Yes. Hi, Kay Berry. Good afternoon. I'm actually about to leave. Price also says we need a cultural revolution, period. I hear you. And one way to start that is pulling these kids out of school. Because everything, if you are on the fringes, like I said, with your belief system and everything they teach them over there at that school is adverse to you and your lifestyle. And it just is, even if you're not polygynous. Even if you're pro-Black, Pan-African, atheist, you're Hebrew Israelite, Muslim, all of these things. If you're just trying to follow Malcolm X and them and be comedic and stuff like that, everything they teaching the kids in the school is against what you got going on. So it's one of those things, if at all possible, if you can't do it, find somebody who can. If you can't do it alone, get with some other families and do something, because school is just not, the traditional school is just not good for the children. Don't worry about their social development. I mean, they can get that. You got to do your job on that part. Our kids are very social, and they are always talking. They don't have no problem with talking to anybody or anything like that. So she said, my kid's been doing K-12 for 3 years, but they burnt out. Yes. Controlling your schedule has been awesome. Yes. I don't believe in teaching my children about God. It's the white man's invention, but I won't force it on others. And see, if that's what you believe, you go to schools, you send them to schools, and they're going to teach them something. It might not be a part of the curriculum, the separation of church and state and whatnot. But one school, it's mandatory for your child to participate in the Christmas program. And we don't celebrate Christmas because Christmas is pagan. But it's mandatory that your child does it, or else like they'll get a bad grade or something. I don't know. Like, nobody's getting paid as an actor. So, but how do you do that? They're teaching your child about Christmas, and you're not even for that. And your child don't deal with Christmas presents and lights and trees and all that kind of crap. You kept them from it. Those are the things you got to think of. And, I would pull them out. That's just me. Let's see. One more thing, which is, how do you explain the polygynous lifestyle to your kids, and how old do you feel they need to be informed? I mean, it's just marriage at the end of the day. And it just is. The younger they are, the less you have to explain. And I mean, the majority of the children in the house, they have grown up. This is their life, and this is their normal. So they've all known that a man can have more than one wife, and this is normal for them. So there was no, okay, sit down, we got to talk. The older they are, you're gonna have to sit down, you're gonna have to talk. So your teenagers, you got to sit down, have a talk with those teenagers and things like that. But I would strongly suggest doing that before you even get a prospect, possibility, potential new wife. I would start that conversation as soon as you start entertaining the idea. As soon as y'all say, yeah, that's something we'd like to do, I would start facilitating those discussions. Of course, you got to make sure that you have most of the answers. You're not going to have them all, but you have to tell them something, because teenagers have already um, seen the world and have a world view and things like that. So I think that's when you would have to do it, definitely. But otherwise, there's not much to explain. You don't have to explain much to a 5-year-old. You don't have to explain much to a 9-year-old, maybe a little bit more than a 9-year-old, but imagine that the problems come in when the children are exposed to something else. I mean, it's one of these things. I'm pushing them on the swing and I'm like, hey, do you guys know that Jacob from the Bible had 4 wives? What? Yes. And did you know that, men can have more than one wife? Oh, yes, I know because of this one. Well, I'm a boy and I'm going to have a bunch of wives. There you go. All right. It's done. It's done. So let's see here. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be strange, but society is more in favor of gaiety, homosexuality, than it is for polygyny. So expect there to be some raised eyebrows. Yes, whether polygyny or monogamy concerning our youth, this is the absolute wisest thing that we could have chosen. Thank you. Yeah, like everybody should do it that can do it. And like I said, if you can't do it, if you don't think you're smart, listen, you're smart enough, I promise. That's another thing. People are like, well, you're not even teacher certified. I don't have to be. We all went through the school system, and even though that game show likes to laugh and ask you, are you smarter than a 5th grader? I promise that you're smarter than a 5th grader. You can do this. You just have to be confident in yourself that you can give them I guess a decent world understanding, but you can. Will you guys have more kids? I don't know. I think the general consensus is no. Those are baby diapers and crying and, and up late nights, and we're getting good sleep at this point, So like my best friend's laughing, saying more kids. Yeah, no. No. So, all right, y'all. Shalom. I'm gonna go back in the loud house with the children that I felt like it was wrong to have to quiet them down. It's nothing to do today. So look, they about to come outside. The garage is opening to get started on homeschool. I see the benefit of having more than one wife, more kids. I know, I see that. Hi, you're not even the kids. He's not the kids, but he opened the garage. I thought they was gonna come out and ride their bikes. So I'm gonna go. I was leaving anyway. So shalom. Yes, if y'all have any questions about homeschooling, watch it again. Ask your questions. We'll be happy to answer them. But peace out. Y'all be blessed. Hi, I see you. Bye.